Good morning and good afternoon to all of our attendees. Thank you for joining today's Family Office Network's webinar series, Cybersecurity Risk, Private Investigations, and Due Diligence for Family Offices. Presenting for us today is CEO John Galvin and partner Gary Gardner. John has been a private detective for over 38 years. He has owned corporate security solutions for over 22 years, and they have handled every type of client from the mom and pop business to the professional sports leagues. With their vast network of investigators, they can handle any type of investigation on a national or international level. Gary Gardner brings over 40 years of investigation, security, intelligence, analysis, forensic, technology, management, and teaching experience in the national and international business and law enforcement communities. His career spanned more than 30 years of diverse service with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, including co-commander of both the renowned bank robbery and terrorism task forces in New York City. At the end of today's presentation, we will have plenty of time for Q&A, and we always encourage your questions. Please use your questions chat option on the right side of your screen to submit all questions over. And gentlemen, I will let you get started.
Lindsay, thank you very much. My name is John Glavin. I am the President and CEO of Corporate Security Solutions, and thank you for joining us today. We'll start with a few things. The biggest misnomers about private investigation and security agencies. One I can tell you offhand is we don't run and jump in sports cars and doing all the things that you see everybody else doing on TV, and we don't solve cases in 1 hour. Okay, we do a wide variety of cases here at CSSI, and I'll start off with some of the projects and some of the things that we have worked on, and then I'll turn it over to Gary, my partner, and then he'll deal with some other types of cases that we're currently working on or working on in the future here. The biggest questions that we get are, what are the most important things that you do on the investigative level? And I'd have to say it's on the due diligence level. And when you say, what does due diligence mean, really? Well, due diligence means anything from background checks to all types of people who want to possibly investigate anything from the builder that's going to build their homes to the nanny or babysitter that's going to do something for them, or a business-to-business purchase. Now, when you talk about background checks, you can get into all different types of things. Most of the background checks that are being done by businesses today have to fall in the guidelines, which we call FCRA. FCRA basically means the Fair Credit Reporting Act. There are federal laws that allow you to do background checks and what you can and can't give the employer can get on that individual. Obviously, anytime you're doing a background check for the hiring purposes or any hiring practices, you have to have that person sign an authorization to do so. You just can't randomly do a background check on your own. Now, what does that mean? That's for employment purposes only. And those background checks, they vary tremendously. They can go from the smallest thing of just checking someone's criminal history to all the way checking credit, verifying different court systems, federal and state, all the way to education and credit. So you can cover a wide variety of items on one particular background check. The most important thing that you have to realize is when you're doing a national background check, that you cover all the different areas in all the different states and regions. The biggest reason being all these states and all these counties and all these cities do not talk to one another. Okay, so when you're running criminal checks, Oklahoma doesn't always talk to Florida, who doesn't talk to New York, who doesn't talk to Georgia. So you have to make sure that you're checking all your states and checking all your boxes when you're doing that on the state level and local level. And then there's another thing called the federal level. The feds, they don't talk to the states all the time. So you have to do your state checks, your county checks, and your federal checks to really complete the due diligence on any particular applicant. Now, with that said, you can also get into the professional licenses. You really need, if you're doing that for someone that's going on a more professional level, any licenses or degrees they may hold, education levels, and so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you're checking all that information out and doing your complete due diligence. And that goes right down to anything from someone you're going to hire or someone you're going to do some work for you around the house or anything like that. You want to make sure that individual and or company, you've been totally vetted during the course of the process of you doing the work. Now, when you get into private investigation work, we conduct all types of confidential investigations that can be record checks, social media checks, which is a really big business right now when you start getting into that. We can do real-time data, and we can crawl deep into some of these dark places and some of the websites these people go to filter out any possible threats or different things like that, or possible we validate the threats too to make sure that monitor future risks or to see what these people, the chatter is in these forums and such. That's a real important business and a model that we're currently working on too. And Gary will get into a little bit more of that when he talks about his cybersecurity things. Some of the other cases that we work on are insurance fraud. Insurance fraud is real big in the business today. It's always been big. As we used to say, you can steal more money with a pen and get away with it than you can with a gun. And the reason for that is theft with inside a company is horrible. And a lot of the insurance fraud that we see are everything from employee slip and falls within the office, employee theft within the office, everything from trade secrets is a huge thing. Trade secrets is a lot of fraud that you have to watch for. Personal protection we do, and corporate investigations. Any type of witness expertise that we provide for insurance claims or corporate investigations, we're heavily involved in that. The other area that we do a lot of work is risk threat mitigation, and that's we prepare for any trials that you may be, any litigation that you're involved with. We work with attorneys, corporate attorneys for your firm. We help them identify any possible cases they may be having involving EEOC, anything like that, sexual harassment cases, anything like that. We can help you out with that. Insider threat mitigation, that's another thing that's very big right now, as you can see, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. Also, identity protection. Obviously, we like to help out companies with that and help you also identify where your threats might be on social media. What are people saying about your company individually and within their behind the scenes? Not just reviews that you see on Google and everything, but what's really going on in that area right there. Those are a few of the things that we currently work on right now on a lot of those bigger cases. You can get into the smaller ones as well, but the biggest things that companies want to watch for is the social media monitoring. So what kind of threats are being made within the office, behind the scenes, behind the computer? What's really going on there? What are some of and how do you prevent this? It's better to be on the front end of these items than it is on the back end, because it can get very expensive. And some of the data that's out there and some of the websites and social media, there's thousands of them. Everybody just thinks the main 3 or 4 of them. There's thousands of these sites where chatter and forums are going on all the time and on the dark web, and threats are being made. And that's why you'll see, and Gary will get into that more too, of when the FBI does these things, they immediately go to the people's computers. They want to see who they've been dealing with, who they've been talking to, what kind of chatter's been going on. And that goes in the workplace too. People don't realize when you're in an office environment, usually that company owns those computers. They can check your computers at any time, at any place. They are the owners of those. They can research the data that's involved in your computer. Anything that's on there, it belongs to them. Corporate secrets, anything like that belongs to the company you work for. So we get involved with that and set up plans for that and help you with any insider threat mitigation or crisis management or anything like that that you think might be needed. we consider ourselves the experts in that area there. So that's some of the things that we constantly are working on right now. And there's some obviously other investigative things that we can do. Obviously, surveillance is really big. Monitor employees after they've been terminated is a big thing now, to see what kind of attitudes they had and once they left the office. You always want to make sure when someone's leaving the office, if they've been terminated for any reasons or whatever, that they're immediately monitored for so many hours, days, or weeks after they've left the office, especially if they've been a disgruntled employee or anything like that. We monitor disgruntled employees while they're at work. That should be brought up all the time in terms of let your employers know that, hey, we think so-and-so is having a hard time at home, away from home, whatever. Bring this to the attention of the staff at all times. Real important right now when it comes to workplace violence. That's which leads to other issues right now. Make sure you notify. The old adage, if you see something, say something. Real important right now in today's world. So that's kind of an overview of some of the things that CSSI does and on a daily basis. And Gary, if you want to go into some of your things now, we might be able to come back to some of the things that questions might be regarding some of the items we just discussed. Okay?
Sure. Thank you, John. And cybersecurity, obviously a big topic these days. You can't pick up the paper, turn on the TV, or check out your online information where cybersecurity isn't a top issue. Particularly of late, ransomware. You all saw what happened to Colonial Pipeline and JSB, the beef manufacturer, most recently. And I just saw today there's another 3 or 4 targets that have been hit with ransomware. And the best success for preventing that is having a good prevention program for protection and resilience. Like I said, ransomware seems to be hot on the list today. Why? Because it works. I mean, these people are getting paid large amounts of money. Ransomware is an ever-evolving form of malware that's designed to encrypt files on your device, rendering any of these files and the systems that they rely on unusable. These malicious actors, mostly from a criminal background, but also from nation-state actors, they demand ransom in exchange for decryption of your files. So what they do is they get into your system almost always through phishing, and once you click on that, malware is downloaded into your system that then gives them ultimate control. So they go in, encrypt your files, and then they send you a message that if you want your files unencrypted, that you have to pay them so much money. So it's a form of extortion. The other thing that they often do is they'll threaten to release that information online that's publicly available if you don't pay a certain amount of ransom to them for that. The next biggest issue out there is something called business email compromise. It's a type of scam targeting companies or individuals who conduct wire transfers and or have suppliers abroad, overseas. Corporate or publicly available mail accounts of executives or high-level employees related to finance or involved with the wire transfer payments in your company or entity, they're either spoofed or compromised through keyloggers or phishing attacks to do fraudulent transfers, resulting in hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses. So I've been talking about phishing in both of those instances. Phishing is not what you think of going down to the to the lake and throwing a line in, but there's some similarities of sort. It's a type of social engineering where an attacker sends a fraudulent, spoofed message designed to trick the human victim into revealing sensitive information or accepting something to the attacker, or to deploy that malicious software that I was talking about on the victim's computer, then result in ransomware. Phishing attacks have become increasingly sophisticated and often transparently mirror the site being targeted, allowing the attacker to observe everything while the victim is navigating through their site. So they're sitting there watching exactly what you're doing. Oftentimes this is done by both the ransomware and business email compromise. Through the phishing, they will go out on the internet in your social media, your family's social media, and they'll learn about you, your company, the people in your company. So, for example, a typical business email compromise would be, pick John. John gets an email and it says, "Hey, John, listen, on that contract we had, I need you to pay them $100,000. Can you wire transfer that today? We need to get that going. Signed, Gary." Now, John thinks that's coming from me, and it's okay to go ahead and make that payment. And all too often, they do. They go ahead and make the payment. The lesson here is, if you get a message like that, and it's what you should set up in the structure of your corporation or your family business, is if somebody receives that message, you need to make sure a follow-up phone call is made to confirm that, or even an email, not using that email, not forwarding that email back, replying to it, but sending something separate or a call separately, so that it's always verified. Do you want me to make that payment? Or you set up a separate structure that says this is the process that will be used. If I'm asking you to make a payment, I will give you a certain code word in there that that actually came from me. So all of these things, sort of prey on our business, our speedy business environment that we live in today, where everything's moving rapidly, right? And, somebody gets that message from the boss and they think, oh my golly, I got to get this handled and I got to get it paid. Normally embedded in that message is the wire transfer address that they want this to go to, which is almost always overseas. Now, some good news. If you catch that within a few hours, the FBI has a capability of reversing that so that transaction does not go through. But there's a small window of time to be able to do that. So any of these things I'm talking about, the importance of you reporting it as soon as you're aware of it is the most effective way to potentially countering it. And we talk about risk or threat assessment. So making an evaluation of, do you have the right things in place to protect your environment, and have you anticipated the things necessary to set up good resilience for continued operation? And such as taking a look, do you have the right, software running on your computer that will prevent some of these intrusions from occurring? Things like Norton's is an example out there, or PC-Matic. If you're in a larger corporation and you've got a CISO, a computer information security officer, they'll set up potentially both hardware and software safeguards that sit and monitor and look for this malware incoming, and they'll quarantine it so it's not able to get into your system. The other most effective method is really through kind of cyber hygiene training of your personnel, what to look for, what to be aware of. And the most important thing is if you get something, a message from somebody, and this could be a phone call where they leave a message, check it out. If it's not somebody you know and you deal with regularly, don't just do whatever they're asking. Determine, is this really real or is it accurate? Having these resilience plans and a plan in place for preparedness is the most effective way of dealing with these things, and having a plan that if you are a victim, how will you handle that situation? So you're not sitting there when you first discover it going, oh my golly, what am I going to do now? You've got a plan, boom, I'm just following this plan right down the line. It tells you who to contact, what information you need to have available, and how you're going to handle potentially the media exposure of this so that you diminish the impact upon your clients. Another good thing to remember is, having a plan that sets up what I call data or network segmentation. You'd be surprised how many people in this day and age load everything they have or know up on a system that is accessible throughout the internet with everything, like the keys to the kingdom. So if there's things that don't need to be in an automated, accessible environment, don't put them there. You go and look at many corporations' websites, and there's far more information than they need to put out there than what is necessary for them to communicate with the public or their clients. Social media. Worked a case, a very large corporation, that they became a target as they traveled overseas. And this CEO said, I don't know how they knew that. This was a very close held secret in the company, that I was going to be in this city on this date, dealing with this contract issue. Turns out that his family had posted information about, hey, Dad's going to Paris next Tuesday, and I asked him to pick me up this or that or the other thing, okay? So oftentimes, these things are closely held secrets within the corporation, but in the family, they don't have that sensitivity, and they comment on Facebook or other type of platforms that information then gets out. People monitor that, watch that closely, and they can learn a lot about you, your travels, and your corporation. So think about that. What you post is important, that you know the impact it can potentially have. Incident response and remediation. Well, it's like anything else. The sooner you get there, the sooner you get on that, the sooner you have a chance of successfully resolving whatever happens. So it's not only just the response and stopping the impact of whatever the nefarious action was, but you also then have the remediation, where you're coming along and trying to clean up your system and put it back in shape so that it's not susceptible and people can't continue to manipulate you or the system through whatever malware they may have placed on there. So it's getting it off, getting it clean, and getting you back in business. Some simple rules, kind of to stay safe is, I've sort of covered, but just as a highlight, if an offer or an opportunity seems too good to be true, hey, it probably is. It's probably some type of scam. Never wire money, send gift cards, or send a check to a stranger. There was a scam that still goes around out there now where they call up somebody, generally, like grandparents or whatever, and they say, hey, your grandson's been kidnapped, but if you'll wire me or send me money, this amount, then, we'll get them released. Unfortunately, that becomes a very effective ploy. That's why they continue doing it. There's another one out there where they try and get you to buy gift cards, okay? Because to a large extent, they're untraceable, and people will use those to pay. If someone claims to be from a federal agency, call the office to confirm, okay? For example, Social Security Administration never calls you. They always send a hard copy letter in the mail. So if you get a call from Social Security saying, hey, there's a problem, or the IRS, same way with the IRS. IRS doesn't call you. The IRS sends you, like certified mail or letters to inform you of some action or discrepancy. They don't call you, and they don't ask you online to make payments or to send money. So never accept money from a stranger promising that you can keep it. That's another scam where they contact you and say, hey, look, I'm going to send you X amount of money, to put in your bank account, and you send me so many gift cards or whatever else. That's another one that's running. If you suspect you've been hacked, or change your passwords immediately. Don't use the same password for all your accounts. The longer the password, the better. If it's 12 characters or more, it's much better than having, 1, 2, 3, 4. And believe me, you can't imagine how many people out there use things like 1, 2, 3, 4, or even the word password, or their child's name. And also, if you're setting things up, set up two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication where it's something that you have and something that you receive, so that you put in your password and log on, and then it sends you to what you've designated, whether it's a cell phone, your email, or your home landline phone, a separate code, which you then put in, and that authenticates you into the system. When things happen, like scammers and stuff, don't just jump and instinctively act. Slow down, think about is this right? Is this wrong? A scammer may say, oh, you need to act fast. If you don't make the payment now, we'll be forced to take legal action against you. Most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, that's bull. Do your research, double check the details you're getting. If you get an unexpected phone call or an email, then it may not be what it purports to be. Look up the bank, the agency, the organization that's sending it. Do they actually even exist? I mentioned earlier that somebody may say, well, this is the IRS calling. We haven't received your tax payments in 4 years or something. I mean, all of these scams, unfortunately, tend to work. Don't send off things to people who you don't know who you're sending them to and why. Okay. Kind of closing things up here with John, and then we'll do some Q&A. But we have expertise in all these areas. Our personnel have years of experience in national security, law enforcement, corporate security, cybersecurity. We can provide round-the-clock reception to receive information and open cases. And on all this stuff, we can provide training sessions on any and all of these topics. So, John?
Yeah, a couple of things I want to touch on, Gary, that you've mentioned too, in terms of expertise in these areas. We pride ourselves in having investigators nationally within 3 hours of any major city in the United States, and that's real important. And Gary's vast knowledge of international investigators takes us all over the globe. So every case is not involved, doesn't involve here in the United States or whatever. If you have something issues overseas, we have the expertise to deal with that too, and put the right people on the ground to help you out there. One of the things, Gary, you mentioned there too, big is the training sessions. The training sessions on a variety of different topics. Not only the cybersecurity, the security itself, and the assessments of their facilities, internal and external, is a real big thing right now with all the shootings going on and so forth. What are the emergency plans in place? Do you have these procedures in place for any emergency thing that might happen in your office or facilities or some? What are the plans in place? Have you gone through any training? What would you do in case of one of these things? God forbid any of this stuff happens. You do have to have some plans in place, and we can implement these plans for you to make sure that you're covered, and your insurance company will actually make sure that you have these in place anymore. That's going to be one of the requirements when you're renewing your liability insurance, to see if you're that you have these plans here, because that will lower your insurance premiums, because they want to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing in case one of these incidents does happen at their establishment. Gary, you have anything else right now, or?
I just, in all my years, prevention is key.
Right.
Most of these things we can anticipate because we've experienced them in the past. And in setting up good planning ahead of time, you can save yourself a lot of aggravation and cost on the back end. So John's right. I mean, the training, whether for you or your personnel or your family,
right?
Okay, what things can they do to be safe? And we can do it virtually, or we can do in-person training. So
right.
Either way, we're glad to support or help your needs to make you more safe and secure.
One of the things you touched on, Gary, which is a big thing nowadays in terms of social media, is people posting things all the time, their personal lives all the time. Hey, I'm checking in at this location, at the airport here. You're just notifying everybody else that's within your network. Hey, I'm not home. I'm not home. I'm not here. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So you become a target, and more people are doing this. We have people that just stalk the net, just stalk and follow people to where they're going. Now, we know you probably parked a car there, here and there. Your car's here. You've done this. You're out of town. Your home is available. Please, that's the most important thing that I like to preach right now, and that goes beyond anything we're doing right now, talking about.
John, that's a good point. One of the things I always tell folks is, in their GPS that they have in their vehicle, they load their home in there so they can just punch the button home. Well, there's your home address. If your car's parked at the airport and they're able to get into that, they know you're not home. And then they can track back to where you are through that. Putting your registration in a place that's easily accessible in the glove box there. Also, if it's registered to your home address, that's telling them right where you are. I tell them on their GPS, put it 3 or 4 houses down the street. All you care about is getting back to the block you're on, not necessarily, the house. Right? So it's little things like that you want to do that throw people off.
The other thing that I'm hearing more on cases are coming in are people that have met people online, Gary. They're meeting people online. They're having conversations with them for months and months and months. then they'll come over and say, hey, John, can you help me out? I want to make sure this gentleman is who he says he is. And he tells me he lives in Indiana and he's this year, he's this old, and he's single, and he's this, that, and the other thing. Come to find out, he's married with 3 children and he lives in Oklahoma. You know what I mean? But yet they've wasted 3 months of their time and numerous calls and emails back and forth. A little bit of due diligence up front, a little bit can save you so much time and aggravation instead of being what they call catfishing right now, you know, which is real big.
Yep.
And that's taken so much emotionally draining to some people that they're doing this at their office, at their work. People are working out at home now. They're getting sucked into this thing. Please just do a little bit of work ahead of time and you'll save yourself so much aggravation, you know.
Romance frauds.
Oh, big
right?
time.
Meeting people online, and the whole intent is to fleece the other person. They've done their research. They know that you know, that person has money, you know, has property, a lot of things, and so they're meeting them online with the idea ultimately of fleecing them.
Right. It's the old adage, Gary, that we talk about. It's an opportunity and need. There's a need.
Yep.
There's a need. I need to do that. I need that money, and the opportunity is with that person I'm dealing with online. So that's how you get through to this. You know. Well, we can check and see if there's any questions right now. Lindsay,
Yes, gentlemen, thank you so much, Fab. Great presentation. Let's try to get some questions to pull through. So again, using your questions chat option on the right side of your screen to send over any questions that you have. So gentlemen, before we jump into that, can you kind of just start from the beginning or give me a little bit of a high level overview again on what someone should do if, you know, we feel that our computer is affected?
Yeah. Don't shut the computer down, but don't continue to transact business on that computer. Sometimes when you shut it down, you kill the trail that a investigator can use to backtrack to find out where that malware is coming from. Also, notify somebody immediately. If you have somebody that does your computer security, like you're in your corporation, you've got a computer security officer there, immediately notify them. If there's an indication that there's truly malware there on that computer, or it's acting in a very strange fashion in which you're not able to control, okay, you know, you need to have somebody come in and take a look at it. And if they find that there's malware on there, or you get a message that says, you know, this is ransomware and they're trying to extort money from you, then you want to immediately notify the FBI that your company, your entity has been a victim of ransomware, and then let us know. We've got people, as John said, all around that we can have respond out to take a look at this. And depending upon the level of complexity, we'll provide the resources commensurate with what the needs are to solve that. But don't continue. I think the most important thing is, if you suspect that, don't continue to operate on that device. If it's in your corporate environment, absolutely get somebody in your computer department to come over and check, because you want to make sure that it hasn't transcended beyond that computer into the rest of the computers within your organization. And that's really going to take somebody that has the computer security skills to take a look at that and determine that. Yes.
Great, thank you. Now, can you guys tell us a little bit about the process, you know, when we want your help, when someone needs your help, how does that look on your end and on their end?
Well, yes, I can help you with that. Obviously, we have an 800 number, which is 1-800-203-4731. And that's answered 24 hours a day, And believe it or not, every case doesn't come in between 8 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we do
Quite the exception.
Right, very rarely. We're used to everybody that calls us is they're not happy calls. There's an issue. So that's why we have to be 24/7. Whatever your particular issue is or need at that particular time, we'll route that to the right investigator that needs to handle that. We'll have an intake person take all the information down. We pride ourselves in getting back to everybody within the same day. You will hear from us at the end of the day. If you don't reach us right away, some investigator will call you back, gather information. That's the easiest way. Of course, you can go to our website, which is i4security.com, EYEFOR and put in an inquiry in there. Same thing, within 24 hours, someone will get back to you, usually within 6 hours. But we always say within 24 hours. Lindsay, everybody, we will always get back to you within that time frame.
I love a good customer service, so that's great. Yes, very much so, especially when someone's in that panic and feeling, just nervous, right? They need help. I would love to hear a little bit about your training sessions. So how do the training sessions work, and what does that entail when you're training someone?
Gary, why don't you take that on the cyber stuff?
Yeah. We'll set up either virtual in person, depending on the topic. And not only will we give you the instruction, but we will provide you handout material that is related to that particular course of instruction. And, the point is, when you walk away, you should have those key elements of whatever that particular topic is, okay? That should be top in your mind. And you'll have some documentation that will allow you to go back and refresh or refer to. And then the most important point is John's. There'll be an email and a phone number to call to follow up on that. They go in varying lengths depending upon the topics, right? And we will do a preliminary discussion so we can assess what is your level of knowledge of this area to begin with. So we don't start out with something that is, too in-depth for our clients, or that our clients have a base level understanding of that particular topic and they need to take it to the next step up. So before we do any training, we will talk to our clients, find out exactly what their needs are. I've had people call in and say, I need some training on X. After we talked to them, it was very apparent that they needed Y and Z together, or maybe they didn't really need X. They misinterpreted what they thought they needed. So that way we can give them exactly, what they need. If it's a training program for like employees and they would like somebody on site to come in and make that presentation, then we can arrange that. Sometimes it's refresher courses with particular topics that are compliance geared, that may be in the industry that they're involved in. So we have various individuals throughout the country on different topics that they have expertise in. And so we'll bring the right person to make that presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that sheds a lot of color on that. Gentlemen, is there anything else that you would like to add before we sign off today?
No, I'm basically, like I said, once again, if they have any questions, they can reach us at 1-800-203-4731, 24 hours a day. And we can discuss anything, the issues that they might have that they might not want to discuss in an open forum or whatever. Everything is 100% confidential. And like I said, we are licensed, bonded, insured in all 50 states. So we can be of assistance to anybody. Please be, call us at any time. All right.
And knowledge is the best tool to not be a victim. The more you know, the better prepared you are to not be a victim.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Gary and John, thank you so much for joining us today. Great presentation. Again, my name is Lindsay with Family Office Networks. I'm going to be following up with everyone individually, so if there's any additional questions or any additional information that you need, I would love to get you in direct contact with the team. So we thank you very much for joining us, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day.